course has three goals, actually. One of which is content-oriented in terms of deepening students' understanding of how sociologists approach certain key social problems. And I've chosen about 14 or so to look at over the course of the semester. Everything from substance abuse and the related question of whether it should be decriminalized to same-sex marriage. We looked at issues of the evolution of gender inequality in modern societies, and today they're going to debate the question of whether feminism has benefited American society. Later in the semester, we're going to get on to questions of race and affirmative action, government regulation of the economy, questions of inequality, questions of welfare policy, poverty, etc. So I chose a variety of both more micro questions and more macro questions to look at.
I think the feminist movement has done a lot for females, yet I think, like you said, it has come to a standstill. And one of the reasons I believe, because the image of what a feminist is has really twisted to a negative image. And I think it's somewhat awful that, a feminist is viewed as some more cursing sailor, tattooed up, short-haired female, and not like where it says right here, one can be a feminist and still love a husband, desire to be a mother, and even leave in labor force in order to raise them. And I think that's what we need to get back to. What is a feminist? And you can be all those things and still be a feminist. You can be for female rights and not be this negative image, what we've been fed.
It was kind of hard arguing that feminism has a benefit of society, because we don't know if it is or it isn't. We want to get our own, but we don't know why. We're doing it because we're told to do it. If you think about it, we're still in this whole mind-washing thing where we're just doing it for the sake of doing it and not doing it because this is something that we want to do anymore.
The course is a writing-intensive course. The course is also organized around a series of debates. So one class, I may give a lecture, we may do some group work where we'll get a general background in the particular problem we're looking at. And then the next class, the students will debate using the materials from the lecture, the textbook, and a book of readings called Taking Sides. They'll debate some controversial issue related to that particular social problem.
I think that women has come a long way from the movement, like feminists have come a long way. But I'm also thinking about culture, because if you look at culture, it has some great impacts. For example, in the Mexican culture, majority of the women, the man tells her, you or you may not work. And so what does a woman do? Not work. So your responsibility is at home. And if you get an American culture, the woman works, has a good income. So it is that here we're trying to figure out if it's the movement has. It does make sense that it has in a sense way, but it has not in some other cultures because the restriction. And also in society, it's a man world. If you look who really runs the country, men. And ever since the beginning, man said women need to be doing this, and it's continuing. So if we're going to make some kind of movement, I think that the feminist organization needs to look over again because they have lost their statement of how. For example, civil rights made a big difference. If we go back and look at the civil rights that are fighting for today, it lost its momentum. So feminine has lost its momentum in a certain way. So it needs to figure out how to get reorganized to make a difference.
In our society, one of the functions of higher education, particularly colleges and universities, is to select people for positions in the sort of professional and managerial layers of society. That if you want to move out of a job where you're going to be basically doing routine and repetitive work most of your life and get into a job where you're expected to think creatively, think critically, etc., you need to develop the higher level reading, writing, and thinking, critical thinking skills that you're expected to develop in the course of being at a university. And that, so that a key element in both my intro courses and the more advanced courses is always the development of critical thinking, ability to present an argument both orally and, most importantly, in terms of in a written form.
Actually, Latino immigrant women have the highest labor force participation of any group in the United States. Your mom may have stayed home, but most Latino women are actually working outside the home, particularly immigrant women, because the increased labor force participation is fueled by the fact that there's stagnant wages. But getting back to the sort of what feminism promised in its early years and what it actually delivered, I think is at the root of some of this debate. What it promised initially in the late 60s and early 70s, when there was a very vibrant movement in the streets, modeled on the civil rights movement, inspired by the student anti-war movement, looking to reach out to working people, to women of color, etc., was a vision of feminism where women would have real choices because society would be reorganized in such a way that people had choices, that there would be social, it wouldn't be simply that it would be okay for women to go out and pursue a career.
On some issues, I've had problems getting students to volunteer easily for taking positions that might be seen among our students as unpopular. One of the things that I emphasize in the class is that it's fine to bring in your own values, your own judgments, your own experiences, but this is a social science class, and that you're expected to make an argument based on logical arguments and actual facts. And the more you can do that, no matter which position you're arguing, the better you're going to be able to be prepared.
After the feminist movement, while a lot of women were allowed into the sector, when you look at the percentage, this affects more of the lower income family because they're the ones who actually are more in the workforce as far as Hispanic and African American women. And while they're out there and they're working the hours, they're not getting paid as much as they should. You know, not only are they not getting as paid as much as women, as men, but they're getting paid less to their counterpart, you know, to white women.
I believe that almost all the students who come through it come out of it with stronger writing, speaking, and critical thinking skills. I think a small minority may decide that this was sufficiently interesting and stimulating that they would at least investigate majoring in social science or sociology in particular. But again, I think that generally the effect has been for students who have committed to the class, who do the work, show up, do the reading, etc., they find that at the end of the semester, their writing, speaking, and thinking skills have improved.